Greetings, fellow conquerors, this is Darkfire Slide, and welcome to a video where I'm going to talk about Rights of Man, the recently, released today, expansion for EU4. And specifically I'm going to be talking about, in this video, the paid features for the game that you should think about if you want to actually pay $20, yes, $20 for the expansion to actually get these features. So, we're at the forum post. I'm going to post a link for this so you can read the entire patch log on your own, or if you want to follow along in the description for the video, so be sure to look for that. And without further ado, let's get started. So as always, if you don't like the patch, changes, you can just revert to a previous patch if you own the game legitimately on Steam. I am aware that some of you pirate, and if that's the case, you're going to have to figure something else out. Without further ado, though, let's look at the expansion features. So these right here are the paid features for the game. You only get them if you actually pay $20 to get Rights of Man. So let's read through these, and I'll kind of give my thoughts and talk about like how big of a change it is. And then afterward, I'm going to talk about whether or not I think it's worth the asking price. All right. So first, rulers now develop personalities when they become adults. Personalities are now also gained after 10 and 25 years on the throne. So. This means that in monarchy, it seems like in monarchies, this is mainly going to be a thing, because I don't know how this would work in republics, because obviously in republics you don't usually have people ruling for more than 4 or 8 years. So I don't know if it's like an oversight on the part of Paradox, or if it actually like affects republics and we just don't see it. Like other government forms might be theocracies. So anyway. From what I understand about these personalities is they give bonuses, and it's like a trade-off. Like you might get more money, but you might gain a little bit more corruption as a result of having like a greedy ruler. Was like the example that they gave, and I think it's a pretty cool feature. It's kind of a nice take from CK2, where obviously like that game is completely based around like leader traits and ability. This game not so much, but I like this because it can, if you get a leader with like a good trait, or a good personality, it can help, counterbalance having a bad monarch, which is kind of a big problem in monarchies in general. Which kind of ties into the next idea, which is an old monarch can now voluntarily abdicate in favor of an adult heir. And this is huge. I think they have to be old or have ruled for like 25 years or something like that. You lose stability still, from losing the monarch, but if you have a really great heir and you just want him on the throne immediately, and you have a really crappy old guy on your throne, you can immediately get rid of him, abdicate, lose that stability, but it's well worth the asking price, obviously. You can now develop your subjects' provinces, which will decrease their liberty desire, which is kind of a really cool vassal interaction, if I'm being 100% honest. If you like to play tall and pay points for that sort of thing. Monarchs now have obituaries and death reasons listed when they die. This is awesome because for the longest time we had no idea why our leaders were dying at the age of 5 or 15 or lived until they were like 80. So this is just a really nice thing, and the obituaries would be cool too if they maybe they did something epic. It might give like a really cool epitaph. Next, we have Great Powers added, and you're going to have to go find the post for this originally. But basically, it's a system similar to Victoria 2, where like the 8 greatest nations or something like that get special abilities, and specifically the number 1 nation in the world has like a resting 25 power projection or something like that. Because in the late game of EU4, it was found that like if you became strong enough and you just didn't have any rivals anymore, you would lose the bonuses of power projection, which didn't really make sense because you were still growing. So this really helps if you're number 1. You could argue that it kind of promotes more blobbing, but it is just a really nice feature to be like, hey, I'm really big and influential, and here's a mechanic that actually shows that. Next, we get you can now construct buildings in your subject provinces. Goes along with the other one, lets you build up your subjects, which is pretty nice if you're into vassal spamming. The take on foreign debt diplomatic action for great powers enables you to pay off the debts of a lesser nation for a significant opinion boost. This is actually really cool. I like this a lot, because instead of just sending a gift, you're actually intentionally paying off their debt so that they might join you in a war or something, which is really cool. The Influence Nation diplomatic action for great powers enables you to sway the opinion and provide a +1 monarch power boost to a lesser country in the category where it has the lowest gain. So again, letting you kind of influence smaller nations in a big way. Debasing your currency can provide cash corresponding to a bank loan, but it increases corruption by 2% each time. That's pretty crazy, but it also means that you don't always have to take out a loan to do something. So that'll be up to user discretion. If you have like espionage, though, I could see that being like a really good alternate form of taking out loans. Added a ledger page for great powers, makes sense. Added console commands, add trait and remove trait to manipulate ruler personalities. The intervene in war diplomatic action allows a great power to join unbalanced wars on the weaker side. So this is really interesting, especially for like I would think multiplayer, because now if somebody's just trying to eat like a smaller nation, you could just flat out intervene, and if they've made the AI correctly for this, this could actually really make it so that you can't just kill off all the smaller nations while the bigger nations are resting, so to speak. And really gives smaller nations like an interesting way to survive, if that makes sense. Next, as a great power, you can now demand that a country break one of their alliances. If they fear you enough to accept, treaties will be annulled between the involved countries. This will worsen the relations between you and the involved countries and cause a truce between you and the target. That's really interesting, because you would think that you would want to do that to get them to, fight something, or if you want to annex them. But really what I think this does is it forces a smaller nation to stop being allies with somebody that you're rivaled with. So if you're like France, for example, and you want to attack Provence, and somehow Provence got an alliance with Austria, but you're also allied to Provence. So what you do is you make them break their alliance with Austria so that when you attack Austria, they're not defending, or Provence isn't defending against you, if that makes sense. That's really cool. Can now upgrade fleets and subject promises. Makes sense. Leaders can now have traits. After a battle, there is this is military leaders specifically. After a battle, there is a chance that the commanding officer of each side gains a trait. This chance is based on the Army-Navy tradition gained in the battle. All leader traits are positive and affect combat abilities, movement speed, attrition, ship durability, chance of capturing ships, reinforcement speed, etc. This is a really cool bonus that is kind of a takeaway from like most other games that have combat on this scale. It's a kind of a takeaway from Hearts of Iron and Stellaris as well, where leaders gain traits after a time. This seems like it's a bit random, which is fine, but it's still really cool, I think. Countries following the fetishist religion can now select a cult to worship. Cults can be rechosen for every new ruler. Additional cults can be unlocked through fighting with other religious groups and friendly relations with heathen neighbors. So if you're interested in playing in the African countries that get fetishism, well, there you go. Daimyos and the Ottoman government will now always maintain their dynasty. New rulers and heirs will be of the original dynasty unless a union is formed. That's interesting. I'm not sure if it's I guess it does matter, but I don't know. I don't see it being that useful, considering that neither of them can form personal unions, and so having a same dynasty kind of doesn't matter. But it does make sense in daimyos, just because otherwise, like in a daimyo, if somebody in the clan is of a different name than the actual clan name, it doesn't really make sense. Whereas the Ottomans, I think the Ottoman government in real life chose an heir rather than this person is the heir, they would choose one, if that makes sense. Though I think it was still out of their harem. Their actual sons, but whatever the case, it's kind of a minor change. I don't really care that much, and especially since it's a paid feature, I wouldn't really, I don't know, it doesn't really inspire me that much. The Ottoman government, pretender rebels now get the correct dynasty. Alright. Revolutionary republics will now have their own factions. Girondists will attempt to spread the revolution abroad. Royalists will try to create a revolutionary empire, and Jacobins will support the realization of the revolutionary ideals internally. So, revolutionary republics are kind of a rare form of government anyway. The earliest you can possibly get one is 1758 if your government is completely in the shitter, essentially, and you're big enough that you can actually do this, and you're in Europe. But it's a nice touch. I wish revolutions were easier to get, but I guess it's cool that they added that in anyway. Can now peacefully abandon a personal union with a lesser partner. This will cost 25 prestige and add a truce of 5 years between the former overlord and the released country. The opinion penalty linearly scales with the liberty desire from negative 200 to 0 for 0% to 100% liberty desire respectively. And you can now set ruler personalities to rulers and heirs in the nation designer. You can now always pay off your subject country's debt. I'm skipping ahead. Okay, so abandoning a personal union. It's nice. It makes sense so that you don't have to fight a independence war with them if they're bigger than you for whatever reason. So that's nice, I guess. At least you have the option. Especially since personal unions can be really hard to integrate sometimes. You can now set ruler personalities to rulers and heirs in the Nation Designer. So that's pretty cool. If you have El Dorado, you can actually add, ruler personalities at the start of the game. You can now always pay off your subject country's debt, which is nice. Help out your subjects more. You can now disinherit heirs if you have positive prestige for a severe prestige hit. So if you get a really crappy heir and your ruler is young, you can just disinherit for like a massive prestige cost, which is pretty cool actually, and makes prestige ideas like yearly prestige and all that more useful, just for that specific mechanic. You can now strengthen your government for military power and gain legitimacy, republican tradition, devotion, or horde unity depending on your government. So that's another cool. It's a cool way to spend military points because sometimes there aren't really good ways to spend military points, and being able to do that to gain legitimacy is actually really cool. It's a nice change from when you're stuck with like a weak legitimacy person, and you want to do that. On the other hand, Ming is going to be harder to blow up than ever, though. The Prussian monarchy is a new government form with the following special mechanics, where military rating of monarchs can never go below 3, and determining how militarized the state is. Militarization of society impacts several military abilities positively. And I'm probably going to make a separate video talking about how I feel about the Prussian government, because I'm kind of mixed on it, honestly. A lot of people are really excited for it. I'm kind of like, well, I guess it's neat, but it doesn't let you play wide, which kind of sucks. But anyway, I digress. Next we have leader traits, and ruler personalities are shown in the military leaders, current rulers, and previous rulers page of the ledger. So that's nice. There's a ledger page for all of your leaders and such. You can now spend military power to increase militarization of society in Prussian monarchy, and the stats command of the console now also lists the top 20 nations in great power ranking. Okay. So let me talk about how I feel about the paid features, because everything else in this patch is free. Is this worth $20? It depends, because the biggest draw for Rights of Man, in my opinion, is the new technology system, which basically allows nations outside of Europe to actually flourish, which is huge for EU4, because for the longest time, if you're not in Europe, you're having a bad time. Anyway, how do I feel about these changes? There's some really nice things in here. These are a lot of really nice quality of life changes, like abdication of the throne, or disinheriting an heir, leaders having traits. The only really game changing, something that's going to greatly affect the actual game, in my opinion, is the great power system. And all of the changes that that's going to bring, and having more power projection for bigger nations. I think that's really going to change how bigger nations are going to play. And obviously, the Prussian monarchy is nice if you like playing Prussia and you like playing tall nations. You don't blob, basically. And apart from that, though, I would rate this at about a $10 DLC, if I'm being honest, for the changes that it brings. If you're a fan of EU4, though, I can obviously recommend this, because this has some very nice changes in it, very nice quality of life changes. But the majority of the nice things about this patch are free anyway, so if you're tight on cash and you're not really looking to, and you don't want to spend money, I don't think you're going to lose out on too awfully much from this, paid DLC. So take that as you will. I'm not afraid to be honest about my opinion about this. I do think that this is a $10 DLC being sold for $20, but hey, Paradox has got to make money somehow off a game that's 3 years old now or something, and this is how they do it. And you know what? That's okay. I do think this is a really cool patch, though, or expansion, because it just adds so many quality of life changes that a lot of players have been asking for a long time. It's Paradox trying to actually improve the game instead of just adding in crazy new features that that can potentially break the game or don't really work as well as intended, or just kind of half-baked. So that's my opinion on that. I can recommend it based on the features, but as far as the price point, that's going to be up to you. If you have the money, go for it. If not, maybe wait until it goes on sale or something, and pick up something like Art of War or Common Sense or even El Dorado. instead if they're cheaper and you're looking for a DLC. Since, like I said, most of the changes in this are going to be free anyway. That being said, I am going to make a video talking about the balance changes and the AI changes, and those are going to be like free features. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.